Hey guys, it's Jeremy here with Metal Music Meltdown, back with another video. Whatever today guys is going to be my top 10 thrash bands of all time. I kind of wondered why I've never done a video like these. I've done like my top 20 albums of each subgenre. We're still working on that series, have to post the next one for that still. I've done my top 10 bands from each country. So I figured I'm going to just do my top 10 bands of a subgenre instead of focusing on albums. And I figured I'd tackle thrash metal first. That's my favorite subgenre of all time in metal, and it's super hard to put together a list. Just so many iconic bands I really love in this subgenre, but I kind of went with the bands that had the most impact on me or that I listen to currently with the highest rotation. That's kind of where I settled to make my list. Otherwise, I'd be driving myself crazy, nitpicking of who to leave on, who to put on. And yeah, I'm not going to see too much about each band. I'm just going to give my kind of standard albums from them and kind of go through the list here for you guys. So number 10, I went with a band I've kind of been introduced more recently to last couple of years, Destroyer 666. Great death thrash band out of Australia. Their last album, Never Surrender from 2022, was my album of the year. Killer album, please check it out if you're not familiar. But Unchained Wolves, their debut, and Phoenix Rising, their second album, is really killer as well. Really strong discography, super hyper aggressive, great riffs. Great blackened vocals, and just a killer band. Really love these guys. Number 9, I went with New Jersey Thrashers, Overkill. Bobby Blitz and the boys know how to bring it. They thrash out every time. Nothing but crazy bangers after bangers. Bobby Blitz has really unique vocals. The last album, Scorch, was really killer from 2023. They've been putting out an album every couple of years pretty much since they started. Feel the Fire, Taking Over, Horoscope. Ironbound's a big one for me too. Love their whole discography. Killer band, really good stuff. Good live band too. I've seen them a few times live. They always just have a blast and a really good live. Number 8, I wanted to represent a newer band that I've been into for a number of years. It's Havoc from Denver, Colorado. They have 5 albums so far. My standard albums for them would be A Natural Selection and Time Is Up, but their whole discography is really killer. One of my favorite vocalists in thrash metal today. I love his vocals, the way it sounds, the tone, but still aggressive, and you can still understand what he's saying. Great riffs, just some pretty straight up thrash metal, just really good stuff. At number 7, I went with the veterans, Metallica, of course. I put Metallica on my list just because of those early albums and the role they played into me getting into metal in my metal music journey. And back in the day, I was obsessed with Metallica. I listened to almost nothing but Metallica at the time for like 10 years there. I obsessed over those first 4 albums. I listened to them like daily, all day, every day. And I went to see them live every time they came to town. There's no denying their early material is just legendary and some of the most iconic thrash songs of all time. The newer material is pretty decent. I don't hate it. I like Hardwired a lot. I enjoyed 72 Seasons was really solid as well. Death Magnetic was a good thrash album as well. They did a couple duds in the middle, but overall they're pretty good. At number 6, I have German Thrashers, Sodom. Love these guys. Their last album, Genesis 19 from 2020, was my number 2 album of the year. One of my favorite albums from these guys, top 3 probably, which is impressive for being their latest album. But Obsessed by Cruelty, Persecution Mania, and Agent Orange. Their first 3 albums are legendary. Love Tapping the Vein too. M16. So just some really good albums in their discography. Really aggressive, very influential on the early death metal and black metal scene. Really evil sounding, much different sounding than the Bay Area thrash sound at the time. But really good band. At number 5, of course, I had to have the Mudi Slayer. First 5 albums are pretty much legendary and perfect. Show No Mercy, Hell Awaits, Rain and Blood, South of Heaven, and Seasons in the Abyss. Hands down, all perfect albums, all of them. My overall favorites are probably Hell Awaits and Rain and Blood. I love those 2 albums. Hell Awaits is so evil sounding and cavernous, and the reverb is just insane on that album. It's just really good. Love Jeff Hanneman's lead work and guitar riff writing. Just a really killer band. Number 4, I went with the other German Thrashers, Creator. Probably the band I listen to the most from Germany right now. I love their early material like Pleasure to Kill. Extreme Aggression is really good. Coma of Souls. But I love their new stuff too, like Phantom Antichrist, Gods of Violence, Hated Morales. Like it's more melodic than new stuff, but it's still very thrashy, still very heavy. Love the vocals, very catchy, chanting vocals. Some people don't like the newer era of Creator, but I still dig it. I think it's awesome. Number 3, I have the Mighty Power Trip. Might be controversial being this high. They only had 2 albums in their discography. Unfortunately, Riley died when he was very young. But I love Riley's vocals in this band. So angry and aggressive, and those like hardcore vocals. Really, probably the best crossover thrash band of all time, in my opinion. Their second album, Nightmare Logic, is a top 10 album of all time for me. I listen to it every couple days. I put it on. I can't get enough of that album. It's so, the songwriting and riffs are very simple and stripped down, but effective in the best way. Like super heavy and get your head banging every time. Every song is a banger. At number 2, I went with Exodus. Always been one of my favorite thrash bands, even back in the day when I was into Metallica. Exodus was always kind of my number 2. Bonded by Blood is my favorite album by them, but Fabulous Disaster, Let There Be Blood, even the newer stuff is really good. All their albums are pretty solid. Force of Habit's the only one I don't really like, but I love all their singers. A lot of people don't like the Rob Dukes era. I think that's one of the heaviest eras of the band, to be honest, and I love all their stuff. Gary Holt's always been one of my favorite guitar players in thrash, and always been a metal hero of mine. He writes just such aggressive and brutal riffs, and the lyrics are very horrific and like horror themed and graphic and just killer stuff. So before I get to my number 1, just some audible mentions of some big bands that didn't quite make my list. Of course, Megadeth wasn't on there. I like their early material a lot. I'm not a huge fan of Dave's voice, to be honest with you, but they had some of the best riffs, like Dave and like Marty Friedman, some really good guitar players in that band. It didn't quite make my list. Anthrax is another big band, and honestly, I was never a big Anthrax guy. I loved their first 3 albums, and after that, I kind of lost interest, to be honest. Other bands, like Canadian bands like Annihilator, barely did make my list. Love Jeff Waters, really good band. Sacrifice is another one from Canada. Voivod didn't quite make my list. Corrosive from Toronto, I fucking love that band. All 3 albums are killer. I debated on putting them on my list, but I left them off. But I think they could definitely be on there in the next couple of, like 5 years or so. Warbringer is another newer band that didn't quite make my list. Bands like Evil, Violence, Toxic is another one. Suicidal Angels, Evil Dead, Holocide. There's just so many great thrash bands out there I could name, but you know, I had to narrow it down to 10, and it is what it is. Or Early Sepultura are some of my favorite albums as well. But number 1, guys, I went with Testament. They've been my favorite thrash band for a long time, and my number 2 favorite band of all time, behind Opeth. Love Chuck Billy's vocals, probably the best, in my opinion, the best vocalist in thrash. And they've always had like a star-studded lineup, like a super group, with Alex Peterson and Skolnick on guitars. Can't get better than those two with the songwriting and the lead work back and forth, and Skolnick's solos. And when they have guys like Dave Lombardo and like Gene Hoglan on drums, and like what's his name on bass, DeGiorgio on bass, like they've had just all-star lineup for so many years. They put in banger material. Some of my favorite albums from them would be The Legacy, The New Order. Let me see here. Formation of Damnation. Even the really new stuff like Titans of Creation is really, really killer. Brothers of the Snake. Top to bottom, I love all their albums. Another band I don't think they have a weak album in. Super underrated. I think their discography as a whole is probably the strongest discography in thrash history, to be honest. Better than Metallica, better than Megadeth, Slayer. Every album's a banger in my opinion. And they were definitely deserving to be of the big 4. And they're just killer. So let me know down below, guys, what your top 10 would be for thrash metal. I'm sure there's bands I left off, but it is what it is, guys. I had to narrow it down to my taste. So thanks for watching, guys, and maybe I'll do a next album. Next video will be like my top 10 death metal bands. I'll go from there. So thanks for watching, guys, and keep it metal.